Katya, you have the ball.
On the webinar on Teaching Native American Youth, Collaborative Efforts. Our webinar today is hosted by the National Clearinghouse for English Language Acquisition, NCELA, located at the Graduate School of Education and Human Development at the George Washington University, funded through a contract with the U.S. Department of Education's Office of English Language Acquisition. Our mission at NCELA is to provide technical assistance information to state and local educational agencies on issues pertaining to English language learners. My name is Katya Suarez, your moderator for today, and welcome everyone. Before we continue on with the main part of our presentation, just a note that the content of this webinar, including information or handouts, do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the Department of Education, nor does the mention of trade names, commercial products, or organizations imply endorsement by the U.S. government. And if you run into any technical difficulties at this time, or if you drop off while we're going through the webinar or during the webinar, please call 1-866-229-3239 or 1-877-668-4490. And at this time, I'd like to remind all our participants we are still taking questions. So if you would like to submit your questions, please submit them by clicking on the Q&A sign on the third tab on the top right-hand corner of your screen and submit it in text format in the chat box. Thank you. And today, as usual, we always have Trinidad Torres Carrion, who is the Education Program Specialist, Office of English Language Acquisition. But we also have a guest person with us today, Joyce Silverthorne, who is the Director of the Office of Indian Education at the U.S. Department of Education. Joyce comes to D.C., actually she came to D.C. on September 12, 2011, and she came to D.C. with many years of service at the K-12 educational system in Montana. In addition to serving for 2 years as Superintendent Juneau's P-20 Policy Advisor, she also served on the Board of Public Education for 10 years and worked as the Tribal Education Department Director for the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, and served as a consultant to education reform efforts conducted by the Montana Legislature. She was the 2008 Tribal Education Department National Assembly, TEDNA, Director for the year, and 2004 National Indian Education Association Educator of the Year. Welcome, Joyce Silverthorne, and she will provide us with some opening remarks.
Hello to everybody on the call, and thank you very much for this opportunity. The idea of coming to Washington, D.C. has certainly been an interesting experience and a wonderful opportunity. Working at the Department of Education is an incredible insight into the process of how many things get done and how we can work together in those collaborative efforts to make improvements for all of the children that we work with. Native language is a particular subject near and dear to my heart. The well-being of children, the identity, their self-concept is made up of this experience in language, in world knowledge, in the way of knowing of their family and their community. And so I am very excited to have this opportunity to make a few remarks, and I'll make them brief, but thank you for joining us, and on to the webinar.
Thank you, Joyce. And now I have the honor of introducing our presenter today, Dr. Louise Lockard. Dr. Lockard was a teacher on the Navajo Nation for 16 years. She earned her PhD in Language, Reading, and Culture at the University of Arizona. She is a clinical associate professor of bilingual multicultural education at Northern Arizona University, where she directed the 1998 Learn in Beauty project and the 2007 Diné Dual Language Teacher Professional Development Project. She worked with John Rayner and Willard Sakastawa Gilbert to edit Honoring Our Heritage, Culturally Appropriate Approaches for Teaching Indigenous Students. She's a member of the Diné Language Teacher Association and the Nikate TESOL Board of Examiners. We'd like to welcome Dr. Lockard, who will present today. And just to remind everyone, for those who haven't read clearly the description, and just to let everyone know that today's webinar will begin with Joyce addressing some questions that were asked during the previous MSTELA webinar held on March 26, 2012, titled Engaging Native American Youth in Learning, presented by her colleague, Dr. John Rayner. And later, Louise will share and provide examples of collaborative efforts taken to teach Native American youth through the Diné Dual Language Teacher Professional Development Program implemented at the Northern Arizona University. So now we would like to welcome Dr. Louise Lockard. Louise?
Yes, Louise Lockard, California Nasha, do Card NAU de Nashnish. Thank you for inviting me to this question and answer session. And I would like to greet Joyce Silverthorne. I have admired her work and the work of her colleague, Dr. Dick Littlebear, and they have been an inspiration to many teachers here in Flagstaff. They visited our campus for our Stabilizing Indigenous Languages conferences several times, and they came once in May when it was snowing. It's snowing here today on the peaks, and thank you, Joyce, for bringing that beautiful weather to Flagstaff. Again, this is we're going to review some of the questions from the previous seminar, and I hope that you will add in some questions of your own. We'll try to make this interactive. One of the first questions was a question a teacher asked about the role of technology in promoting culturally relevant curriculum, teaching, and learning. And I'd like to highlight three programs that I think address this question. On a national scale, the Native American Public Telecommunications Project, which has been in existence for many years. One new project is a documentary, Racing the Res. And this documentary interviews cross-country state rival teams, Chinle and Tuba City, and it documents the lives of youth growing up on the reservation. They also, in the documentary, they interview the two coaches, Sean Martin from Chinle and Carl Perry from Tuba City. And Sean says, through running, you can better yourself and find tools to better yourself as a person. So that's one resource that's a technology available to everyone. And then on a local level, I'd like to feature one of our schools, the Star School, which is about 30 miles outside of Flagstaff. And at the Star School, Rachel So, the media arts teacher, works with students. I visited their classroom a few weeks ago, and the girls were planning a documentary, writing a script, and then planning to go out and interview elders in the community. The students integrate literature and place-based media, and their work has been shown at the Red Nation Film Festival, the Colorado Environmental Film Festival, and the Venice Film Festival. And if you click on their webpage, you can actually view some of their media that they developed by the students. And another resource close to home is KUYI, Hopi Radio, and the students from the high school have a youth broadcast program. They use the Hopi language to discuss literature, public affairs, and politics. A group of students this winter was developing a broadcast on hairstyles. questions, Katya, about media?
Just one question. How readily supported is technology on the reservation?
You know, I think we've jumped the digital divide. You know, some communities don't have landlines for phones, and so internet technology is welcomed in these communities. And the school is often a central resource for sharing technology and for bringing families together around technology.
Okay. And do they use a lot of social media to help promote the culture?
You know, this was a question I've been thinking about. I use Facebook all the time.
Right.
To communicate with the teachers in our project using Facebook. We had some Navajo language teachers here this Friday and Saturday, and now some more of us are friends on Facebook. But the social media is often not used in the classroom. It's used, again, in a social way outside the classroom.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Another question was about promoting the use of thematic units with students. And the questioner asked, we get a lot of pushback in the field because teachers are in schools that just don't support this type of transformation. Any advice? And then another question, do you have any suggestions for getting Native families more involved in developing a culturally based curriculum? Now, this again was a question from the last webinar. I think that one of the things we can look at is the Common Core standards. The Common Core standards support the selection of text within and across grade levels, which have been selected around topics or themes that systematically develop the knowledge base of students. And so I would encourage the person who asked the question to work with your local school district, get involved in this ground level work in developing curriculum, mapping curriculum to the Common Core standards. And then in terms of the second question, how do we get Native American families more involved in developing a culturally based curriculum? I have a couple of resources. The first is an article by Herbert Benally, and I think one way we can get parents involved is to value the Diné philosophy of learning within the community and to frame all curriculum planning within these traditional ways of knowing. Another resource written by Dan McLaughlin from Diné College is an article which investigates strategies for enabling bilingual program development in American Indian schools. And I want to talk more about Dan McLaughlin's strategies. And so one of the things that McLaughlin felt was a goal in developing a strong culturally based curriculum was to help students learn to speak, read, and write their parents' and grandparents' language. He developed programs that brought parents into the school to show them that the bilingual program was theirs and that local language and knowledge could be taught effectively in the classroom. And within this bilingual program, new genres and functions for oral and written Navajo were developed, including lists, letters, notes, diaries, and songbooks. Now, at the time, Kathy McCrae was a student at the Rock Point School, and today Kathy is a kindergarten teacher in a bilingual immersion program, the Window Rock Immersion Program. And Kathy was reflecting on what had led to her success today as a bilingual teacher. And she reflects back on her own education. And Kathy writes, I am reminded of our newspaper that we had in high school. It was created through a program called Applied Literacy Program. This was a high school newspaper that was published by high school students in English and Navajo every quarter. We had to pick a topic, interview people, and do our investigations and stories as well as editing. Within those literacy programs, the components were computers, Navajo and English writing, and lastly, the school had a small TV station where we actually went on air to do some reporting. We used the ALP classes as our resources because we didn't have that many materials that were written in Navajo, which worked to our advantage because we made reading materials for the entire school as well as the community. Freshmen students all the way to seniors all contributed articles in Navajo or English to the newspaper for a grade. Another question that came up in the last webinar, and it's a question that comes up frequently in discussions with teachers, was one on writing instruction. And I think this is also an important question when we look towards the new Common Core standards, which will fully integrate writing early in the curriculum for all learners. And the question was, other than allowing students to write about what they know, it is also important to know about the effects of culture on writing patterns. Traditional linear writing organization is not something that all cultural groups know. This is a consideration that has a major impact on the success of students in composition courses. Robert Kaplan's research on cultural discourse patterns is useful. And I think we need to broaden the discussion sometimes to not only think about cultural discourse in a graduate or high school level composition class, but to think about how oral language is used within the classroom in classroom interactions, and to help teachers investigate their own attitudes towards the language of the community, and then to understand how bidialecticism and bilingualism are resources which add to the success of our students in the classroom. Now, I've listed a number of articles that I've used to begin this discussion with teachers. The first two articles by Gloria Dyke and Laura Tohe are articles directed towards the writing of college-level students. The other articles really investigate the whole range of attitudes towards discourse patterns, both in the community and in the classroom. And I'd like to focus finally on the last article, which is written by two instructors here at NAU who were working with an OBEMLA professional development project on the White Mountain Apache Reservation. And as part of a class in second language acquisition, they worked with a group of secondary teachers at White River High School. Now, in their work with the teachers, they found that the teachers learned about the theory of second language acquisition, but they also reflected, again, on their own attitudes towards the community dialect. In this particular setting, the students speak a rule-governed dialect of English, which differs from standard English. We could call it, sometimes we call it Res Talk, American Indian English. There are lots of terms here. And they found the question was if 90% of the students in the White River Unified School District are limited English proficient students and they are not Apache speakers, then what actually is the language of these children? Again, there was a discussion about the dialects of the community and the prestige of the community language within the classroom. And finally, after discussions with the teachers and reading a variety of articles exploring community dialects in different indigenous settings, the teachers began to express these attitudes. And I'll just read a couple of clips from the teachers. One teacher said, "I've been guilty in the past of thinking of reservation English as bad English. It had not occurred to me that reservation English could be of value and that it has value as a form of communication."
Yeah.
Another teacher commented, "I've become aware of a very distinct res language. The students certainly have terms and experiences that are distinct to the community and to the school. Terms like dry and cheap are two examples that come to mind. They are not used in the definition of the word as I know it. It reminds me of an East Coast term I sometimes use, wicked." So they discussed just slang and dialect in terms of appropriate classroom language. And then finally they reflected on their own role. And one teacher said, "My job as an English teacher is not only about teaching right versus wrong, standard English, but about teaching my students different forms of appropriate English along with when, where, and how to use them. This allows me to still teach standard English while it removes the negativity of don't say or write that way because it's wrong." Anna, did you have any else? No? Okay.
Yes, Louise. I just wonder, now some of these teachers who participated and who actually work on the White Mountain Apache Reservation, have you seen changes or increase as far as acceptance on the part of those on the reservation to participate more in the White River Unified School District?
This is one of our master's programs, and I think it ended around 2002. But I am working now with one Apache teacher who's working on her master's degree now, and I know that many of the same attitudes exist. And so, I think our teacher education program has a great deal of work to do, and sometimes simply sitting down with a group of teachers and looking at student writing and sharing what reflects the values of the culture in the student writing helps to change these attitudes. Okay. Again, this is an ongoing education process, I think.
Yes. And that's the only question I have pertaining to this right now. Thank you, Louise.
Okay. Okay. And this is a question that got me going because they asked when would we offer a webinar on how to get teacher education programs to accept, engage, and implement the strategies of culturally based education. And here at NAU, we have been actually working with bilingual teachers in Arizona classrooms since 1985. And we recognize that a culturally responsive teacher education program empowers teachers to make choices that honor their professionalism and language background. Knowledge learned in one language paves the way for knowledge acquisition in a second language. Jim Cummins reminds us, and I quote, "In social situations where there is likely to be serious erosion of the first language, there is a need for the development and maintenance of the language if intellectual performance is not to suffer." And so we believe that when teachers work in professional learning communities where social interactions, interpersonal relations, classroom communications, and technology support both the language of the community and English, teachers will be successful. And we work to provide mentor teachers for new teachers entering the profession, and we believe that an effective way to prepare teachers is through site-based partnerships between colleges of education and K-12 schools that allow students to immediately apply what they are learning in their college classes by working with the K-12 students under the supervision of mentor teachers.
Louise, are majority of them Navajo, majority of the teachers in this program?
In the Diné Dual Language Teachers Professional Development Program, which we started this semester, they're all Navajo.
They're all Navajo.
Yes, they're all Navajo language teachers. The Diné Dual Language Professional Development Project helps to meet the need for highly qualified teachers by providing coursework leading to a master's in bilingual multicultural education. And over the 5 years, we will provide the master's degree for 40 teachers. Currently, we have 29 teachers enrolled in the program. And again, these are teachers with a proficiency in the Diné language and a willingness to teach in dual language programs. Again, the program is based on the Diné language, a statement from the Navajo tribe enacted in 1988. The Diné language is an essential element of the life of students and culture and identity of the Diné people. The Diné Nation recognizes the importance of preserving and perpetuating that language for the survival of the nation. Instruction in the Diné language shall be made available for all grade levels in all schools serving the Diné Nation. And this project began as an Annenberg Rural Challenge Grant, which was funded from 1998 to 2001. And in this project, schools were identified as partners in the project based on particular strengths. And we'll go through a list of these schools in a minute. Sandra Wilson, who's a parent at the Star School and who wrote an evaluation of the project titled Engaged Institutions Impacting the Lives of Vulnerable Youth Through Place-Based Education, wrote that it was important for place-based learning to overcome cultural and historical biases on the Navajo Nation. And Sandra writes, proponents of place-based learning recognize that community ownership is an essential component of a successful Navajo school. Again, the Rural Systemic Initiative supported teacher leadership, promoted community engagement, and made place-based learning the foundation of the curriculum. And one definition of place-based education comes from Boyer, and Boyer writes, place-based education reflects a deep respect for rural life and honors the determination of residents to sustain rural communities. The global community is, in the end, an amalgam of local communities, and efforts to strengthen the former by ignoring the latter is counterproductive. Here's a map of the Navajo Nation, and I will begin to go through a list of schools as we prepare for questions. So as I'm talking about the different schools in our consortium, I hope you'll be thinking about some questions. Okay. This is Rock Point Community School. This is a contract school. It implements a coordinated Diné education program which recognizes both the Diné and the English language as equals and emphasizes maintenance and developmental aspects of both cultures. Rock Point Community School has exemplified community involvement education. Rock Point School has developed and implemented culturally and linguistically authentic Diné curriculum units that are representative of local traditions such as clan affiliations, and it currently serves 419 students.
Wow. Now, Louise, could you speak a little bit about the strengths of some of these schools that were selected?
Yes, well, Rock Point was one of the earliest schools to begin a full bilingual education program. And many of the teachers in bilingual programs around the reservation today were students in the Rock Point program. I read a quote from Kathy McCrae, who graduated from Rock Point and is now the kindergarten teacher at the Diné Ba'olta School in Window Rock. So this has been a successful school which has developed a whole generation of successful bilingual teachers who are now serving in schools all around the reservation.
Okay.
And then the Chinle School District is actually the largest of our partner schools. The Chinle School District has been successful with immersion programs over the years. My own children went to kindergarten and first grade in Chinle. Their principal, Marjorie Thomas, was one of the earliest advocates of bilingual education, and single-handedly, I think she developed Navajo language curriculum for the district, which at the time included video broadcasts, which were used in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And today, teachers in the Chinle district continue to teach Navajo language and culture in grades K through 12 with a strong high school Navajo language component. The Window Rock Unified School District serves a large number of Native American students. The district implements a Diné language immersion program that serves 300 students a year. In this program, students receive content area instruction in the Diné language and are required to communicate only in the Diné language. Parents sign a contract to reinforce the use of the Diné language in the home. Again, this is a program that's been successful, so we find that parents may actually send their children back to the reservation to enroll in the Window Rock Immersion Program. This week the school is doing a Navajo language book fair. Last month the school participated in a spelling bee, and so the students are not only learning and relearning their heritage language, but this is a model program which has been very successful for many years. The Kayenta Unified School District is recognized for innovation in technology-based instruction, and has implemented a learning on demand interactive curriculum, allowing students to use their prior knowledge as a springboard for further investigation into community issues. And this is a photo of a Saturday Family Navajo Language Program, which was developed by Jackie Benally, the principal at the primary school, who helped two of her teachers raise money and visit the Hawaiian Immersion Program in Hilo, and then come back and start a Saturday program for Navajo language and culture. Okay. Tuba City has an integrated curriculum based on the Diné philosophy of learning and the Beauty Way, which has 4 components: respect for nature, standards, positive attributes for life, social competence, and making a living. The district is engaged in a successful partnership with local businesses and employs, through its School to Work program, employers. And this is a picture of the trading post into the city.
Could you speak a little bit about the Beauty Way? I'm sorry, Louise.
Yeah.
And what it actually means?
I can't go.
Learning and beauty. Because I do remember you worked in the Learning and Beauty project, and I just was wondering if you could explain a little bit about the Diné philosophy.
There are four components to the Diné philosophy of learning. And so, especially in the Tuba City District, for many years, when they plan curriculum, they include the full Diné philosophy in the planning process. And so there's a component for planning, but also as you progress through the lesson, a time for reflection. And they've gone through many models of the bilingual program in Tuba City. Today, they have Navajo culture and Navajo language available to all students in the schools. And at one time in the early 1990s, they had a dual language immersion program. It was all based on planning following the Diné philosophy of learning.
Okay. Because I think the participant wanted to find out basically what it meant, specifically learn and beauty. And it just seems like it's very well integrated with those four components, harmonizing together. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the Ganado Unified School District has received national recognition for its innovative educational program where students create and learn on their own with guidance from their teachers, parents, and community and citizens. For example, children publish their own newsletters, operate a post office, write letters to each other and to the principal, and have produced a video bulletin board using puppets. Ganado Primary School offers the Diné language and culture as part of the school curriculum. Then Little Singer Community School is a community-controlled school, a smaller school, a population of only 92 students. And this school implements a successful parent model with a SPACE program, which allows parents to work in classrooms assisting with instruction. Parents attend training workshops and conferences, and this program has increased parental support for learning.
So the parents are really engaged in that particular school.
And they're there in the building every day.
Wow, okay. Now, do they plan to reduplicate that same parent model in the other schools that are participating in this program?
One of the nice things that happened I know in Kayenta, because of a drop in school population, they've taken one of their school buildings and created a parent center there. And so they are able to offer classes to parents and to offer the same kind of a model. It's not a FACE program, but it does involve classes for parents and opportunities for parents to participate fully in the school.
And that probably increases engagement of the community as a whole.
Yes, of course. And when you get the parents early, you find support for students throughout their education.
Okay.
And the Flagstaff Unified School District, I was there yesterday at the Puente de Hojan School, and there was no snow. There was no big block of snow over the doorway, but today it is snowing. The Flagstaff Unified School District serves nearly 3,000 American Indian students in grades K through 12. That's about 27% of the total enrollment. In 2001, the district created the Puente de Hojan Trilingual School, which is Bridge of Beauty, if you translated that from Spanish and Navajo. It includes a Diné language immersion program that currently serves 128 students a year. In this program, students receive content area instruction in the Diné language for 85% of the day in kindergarten, 75% of the day in first grade, 50% of the day in grades 2 through 5, and that's math. Students in the program outperformed their Native American peers who were taught in English only in schools around the district. Because this is a magnet school, they were able to compare students at the same grade level. And you can see that this success is quite remarkable. At the fourth grade level, there was an 80% passing rate on Ames reading, compared to a 50% passing rate for Native American students not enrolled in the immersion program. And at grade 5, the gap was 63% to 55%. At grade 6, 67% to 59%. And the gap in math was also quite remarkable. 63% passing compared to 54% in grade 5, 67% passing compared to 53% in grade 6. So, this, any questions?
Now, could you explain a little bit on how I see the increase in the gap, but what would you contribute that to?
As students progress through the program, they seem to they're gaining proficiency in 2 languages. And we know from the research that there's a cognitive advantage to bilingualism. Yeah. But, in this school community, there's also a commitment on the part of the students and their parents to academic achievement. So there's little attrition in the program, and as students reach grades 5 and 6, we find very successful bilingual learners who can succeed in 2 languages. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that does. Thank you.
And, we're talking about collaborations. We talked a little bit about partners and our work in working with the Annenberg World Systemic Initiative to bring successful schools together. But I think what we do best in teacher education is to bring teachers together who may work in Navajo language programs in very diverse communities, and to help them recognize their strengths. And Rhonda Thompson, who's a first grade teacher in Chinle, reminds all teachers that, she says, we are the experts. We have a caring staff at our school who know that offering the best education to Navajo students is up to us. We are the experts. So our teachers reflect on the teaching of Navajo language and culture from the perspective of their daily work as they engage their students in exploring their own lives through the curriculum. Now, I'd like to open it up to questions. I hope we have
we have 1 or 2 questions, and we basically led up to this. You spoke about engagement and the strength of the certain schools that were selected. But we want to know, how do we begin? How do we begin to create this collaborative effort that is displayed with the schools that were selected, the community, the people that live on the reservation, and maybe some of them who do not live on the reservation and the university? How do we begin?
Well, I think we've had examples of successful schools serving Native American students. We can go back to Rock Point Community School, Rough Rock School. These were successful schools created in the 1960s or transformed from traditional VIE schools by often the school board members, parents, teachers, administrators who shared a vision for their community. So we view the history of Diné education and find examples of success, and we can also look within our own communities to find these resources. We were working with a group of Navajo language teachers this weekend, and they were high school teachers, and often in a high school there's maybe just one Navajo language teacher, and then the whole teachers who represent the whole high school curriculum. And so I think sometimes it's important that we get together with other teachers who share our professional goals and our vision for language revitalization, and just get together and share ideas and strategies. I would recommend some professional organizations, the Diné Language Teachers Association. Again, it's a group of teachers organized to get together and share ideas, and then to advocate for programs that work.
Okay. Now, if we have folks that would like to participate, say teachers who would like to participate in the project, but who are not Navajo or who do not speak the Diné language, can they learn and can they participate in the dual language program?
Yes. In all of the in the two dual language programs, there's always a need for all teachers in the school to get involved, and in our teacher education program, there's a tremendous need for young teachers who may not have learned a heritage language as they were growing up to relearn their language and as they enter the profession. I worked with a young woman last year who was of Navajo heritage, who had grown up in Las Vegas, Nevada, and her dream was to become a bilingual teacher. So she went to Diné College and spent a year relearning her language and working with her aunts from Shanto, Arizona. And then she came here and completed her master's degree in bilingual education. And she's now teaching in a reservation border town where she can use her newly learned skills in language and also her skills as a teacher.
And just a quick note to participants. I just want to ask participants a question. I just want to find out how many of our participants are actually participating in groups. And if you are participating in groups this afternoon on this webinar, if you could just click on the little electronic hand midway through the screen on the right-hand side, that would really help us to indicate how many are participating in groups. Thank you. And so could you speak a little bit more about the collaborative effort by all the different entities within the community that actually helped to make this program successful?
Well, we worked with the school districts, which I've highlighted, and we've worked with these districts, over a number of years in our funded projects, and then we continue to work with them when we don't have funding to prepare teachers for the dual language programs. We also work with the Diné Division of Education, and they work with the teachers. They work directly with the school districts, and they have just developed new Diné language and culture, Diné content standards. And these standards are really in draft form, but and Tita Benali and the other members of the Diné Language and Culture group bring many resources both to this consortium and to our teacher education program. And I just want to share one of the standards. I know these are in draft form, but we have oral Diné language standards, and for grades 9 through 12, the benchmark is I will listen and communicate effectively with logical Diné language structure appropriate to various situations or settings. I will utilize the Diné language in any setting, and continue here. So we have the ongoing work of the Office of Diné Language and Culture. In each of the school districts, there are curriculum committees that meet to revise curriculum and to work with the teachers. And then we continue to work with the Indian Education Desk at the Arizona Department of Education. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that does answer my question, Louise. And we encourage all of our participants to please submit your question and answer in chat format, in text format, the chat box or the Q&A tab. And we will continue with our webinar presentation. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you. Again, Rhonda Thompson, the first grade teacher from Chinle, says, many times it seems that we ponder on the negative and forget about some wonderful things that are happening in our schools. But we also have the power to make changes, even though they are small ones. I like the teacher program you mentioned, and this was a discussion where we were talking about the Window Rock Immersion program. Sometimes there are openings in a dark cloud. So I think one thing we need to remember in preparing teachers is that we have to include these discussions about dispositions of effort and resilience in learning Navajo as a heritage language, and in studying Navajo culture as part of a broader investigation of the social and historical roots of the community. Now, Louise Curley, who's a graduate of our program and now mentor teacher in our project, writes that we as native language teachers may not always see the immediate results of our students' reading and writing, but we are confident that as our students progress in life, they will take some of our unique language and culture teachings and apply them to their lives. We feel hope, which is not passive, but an active attitude. And again, Louise Curley is an active junior high teacher, and she works on a variety of projects and thematic units, and she also comes to campus every summer to help the Navajo language staff work on translations. And again, we need to think about an understanding of the history of education and an understanding of efforts by teachers and parents and community members to gain autonomy in the education of their children. Sometimes this history is not included in traditional teacher preparation programs. Teachers need information about successful program models, strategies, and materials. They need to discuss the funds of knowledge in their communities, which motivate parents to transmit their language and culture to their children. And they need to establish settings in the community where children are immersed in their home language. And we're talking about this idea of immersing kids in the language, and especially in the oral language. We're talking about this with the high school teachers this weekend. Parents need to get involved. At Window Rock High School, the high school students are preparing a play about animals and presenting it to the third grade class at the immersion school, so that the children in the immersion school have that authentic exposure to the language. But we have to be active, and we have to involve the community in this process of education.
Yeah, and language is an essential element to their identity. So I'm just wondering, can you speak a little bit to the relationship between place, language, and identity in terms of the education of Native American and Alaska Native children? As it relates to the program, the Diné Language Immersion Program.
The identity comes with this understanding of the language. The teachers this weekend introduced themselves in Navajo and made an email list with their names, but also with their clans. And so when you identify yourself as a member of a community, you identify yourself with a whole history and a culture. Without this identity, we're simply doing school, and we don't have the lives and the hearts of our children, and we won't be successful in perpetuating this language for future generations.
Thank you.
And again, I have a quote from one of our graduates who taught for many years in a bureau school. And she writes, "I've always wanted to write a paper about a Diné language immersion school, which would include science and math to be taught in Navajo. As we were doing an assignment, we thought it would be a perfect way to explain the process of change. It would also be about teaching and how students learn best using their culture and language." So, for some teachers, I've never taught for many years, but never been able to fully explore the possibilities of using their language fully throughout the curriculum. And that is one of the hopes of our project, that we work with these schools to give these teachers the resources and the opportunities to share their language skills. And finally, I want to invite participants to visit our campus July 13th and 14th this summer. We're hosting our third American Indian Teacher Education Conference. And we've invited Donna Daly, professor from the University of Utah, to talk about her book, Listening to Lives, Lessons Learned from American Indian Youth. Ray Barnhart from the University of Alaska at Fairbanks will talk about the reemergence of indigenous knowledge in Alaska. Jenny DeGroat, who teaches here on campus, will talk about why oral language immersion programs are important. And we have a number of other presenters. Mansell Nelson, who works with our STEM science initiatives with Native Americans on campus, who will talk about STEM science. So I invite you to visit our conference website. If you can't attend the conference, we will have conference proceedings also posted on our website so that you can share in some of the research and some of the knowledge of teachers here at NAU. And thank you so much for participating. And
thank you.
Ask the question now. You can email the question, and I will answer it later.
Okay. Yeah, and there's just one question. I think I would love to ask, so that those who do have it. There were a couple of questions that came in regards to the Diné instructional materials that are used and developed. Could you speak a little bit more about how they're developed?
Instructional materials for Diné language?
In the Diné language, yes.
Yes. So
how are the Diné instructional materials developed?
They're developed in actually several ways by commercial publishers, by individual schools. The Tuba City schools have rich resources. The Window Rock Immersion Program has a curriculum. Other schools not in Arizona, Farmington School District in Utah, the San Juan School District in Utah, has materials that have been developed over many years and that are available for teachers in other schools to use. Also, the Office of Diné Language and Culture has archives of materials developed in the past, and they are continuing with the work in curriculum development. There's always tremendous need for new and challenging resources for Diné language learners and for materials that engage students at all grade levels and all content areas.
And one last question. You spoke earlier about technology, I think in the beginning slide. How can online teacher preparation programs support a place-based education? And this is weaving what you spoke about earlier with place-based education philosophy for Native American and Alaska Native students.
Yes. I don't think the online format is different from what we've tried in the past. In our last round of funding, we were working on interactive television. Now we've moved to an online format. The values of the community are transmitted in any way, in any class format. So if we provide an opportunity and for students to share the resources of their community, and if we provide background information, we can form communities, whether it's online or on interactive television or even on the phone. I'm looking at my old phone, which has been here since the 1970s, and it's still a way of sharing these resources.
Okay. Now, we do have other questions, but I notice we're running out of time. I do want participants to realize that we do have a reference list after the question slide, and these are just some of the references and resources that are found on the PowerPoint presentation, which can be downloaded off the NSTELA website. And these questions that have not been answered will be forwarded to the presenter, and the presenter will then respond to your questions. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating on the webinar titled Teaching Native American Youth Collaborative Efforts, presented by Trinidad Torres Carrion with remarks by Joyce Silverthorne and presented by Dr. Louise Lockard, hosted by National Clearinghouse for English Language Acquisition, NSTELA, located at the Graduate School of Education and Human Development at the George Washington University. For more information or if you have additional questions, please contact Trinidad Torres Carrion at trinidad.torres-carrion@ed.gov or Louise Lockard at louise.lockard@nau.edu. And if you have additional questions regarding the webinar itself, please contact Katya Flemons at kflemens@gwu.edu. Reminder to all our participants that this webinar will be archived on the NSTELA website, and to view archived webinars, please visit www.ncela.gwu.edu/webinars/. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.